Well, welcome back. I'm Bill Donath with the Logan County Genealogical and Historical Society, and we are looking at the process of making the Shew Collection useful. What we're looking at here is what the Shew Collection looked like when it was delivered to us in 2017. All of these papers had been found in the MKS jewelry store, and as they were cleaning it out, they came across these things in a walled off area in the building somewhere, and they I was at the center on a Friday afternoon, and Mark Shew stopped by and he said, we've come across a bunch of Lincoln Herald stuff. Would you guys want it? And we were thankful that they were able to give it to us and willing to give it to us. And I was not there when these were delivered the next week. But when I walked in there, I said, oh no, what did I get myself into? Well, here's what we got ourselves into. You're seeing here probably 7 to 9 boxes of paper. You can see on the top the newspapers are in not too good a condition, and in the bottom boxes are these little rolls of paper, and you'll see more about those later on. But right now we're wanting to look at the newspapers themselves. So all of this had to be processed and organized. So one of the first things I did was to take the newspapers, lay them out on one of our big tables there, and put them in chronological order as much as I could, at least by year at the beginning, and then we started getting them that refined to where they were in the months and the years, and then we got them in sequence in the month. So there were 4 issues for every month, so for the ones we had. So that took some time to do that, and of course any of the papers that were on top of a stack in wherever these were stored, it was an attic area there, were quite dirty. You can see some of them in there that are pretty dirty, but some of them were just irretrievable. They were been on top for 120 years, I suppose, at least, and they got a lot of dirt on them. So I tried to salvage as much as I could, but by the time I was done, we had almost 700 issues of the Lincoln Herald, and you can see that they're needing a lot of attention. Well, I had no knowledge of how to go about doing this and preserving these things. So I reached out to Ann Mosley at the Lincoln Heritage Museum at Lincoln College and asked her if she was familiar with paper conservation, and she told me how to handle this. Some of the things she told me I wasn't quite sure of it at the time, but she was proven right every time that I had to do something. Her advice was spot on. So let's move to the next image. Okay, here are the papers. Not all of them. This is part of the papers. But what's happened to these papers already is that they've been humidified and pressed so that they lay flat, but they haven't been cleaned yet. So the papers are here, and let's go through some of the tools that we use to work with this. Of course, we had the plastic gloves to protect ourselves and a dust mask. This is a stack of pink erasers, and this is the part that I question whether it would work or not, but these things have done a wonderful job of getting the dirt off of the paper. And I still use the process, and you'll see it in later videos. Brush to get the loose stuff loose. The scissors to trim off loose things that were hanging around. Vacuum, once I went over them with the brush, I used the vacuum on it. The knife, the X-Acto knife, you will see in a few minutes here what that was for. And ear protection, because that vacuum was noisy. And I used it on every page of every paper. So here's an issue that had some exposed dirt on it. You could see that one paper was laying on top of this over here. Another paper was laying on top of it over here. And this portion here and across the bottom was exposed to the dirt or whatever for an awfully long time. Now the idea here is to remove the dirt to make this more readable and get rid of the dirt down here, so that if somebody was to handle them in the future, they wouldn't be in contact with this dirt. Now you can't get all the dirt off, and you'll see that it'll leave a stain, but we'll at least get it more readable. And here's an article that I plucked out of that vertical line of dirt, and you can see that it's readable, but there are places where it is difficult to read. Of course, got my plastic gloves on, and then I went over it with the brush to loosen up the dirt. Then I vacuumed the dirt, and here you can see I've already removed the dirt from the bottom area. And although I didn't turn the dirty side up, the dirt is on this pink eraser. And then I start working on the long streak down the middle of the paper. And you can see that we were able to remove everything but the shadow. The problem is with newspaper, newsprint, is that it's fibrous. And the really small particles of dirt are going to get in there, and they're going to stay in there. But you can see my eraser is quite filthy, and that's the dirt just from this page. Other pages in the paper I went over as well, because you can see down here along this edge where the pages come together, dirt filtered in there as well. So those were cleaned. Every page had a cleaning process to it. And when we open this up on the hinge side, you've got to be careful, because there's always a space here where dirt can get into that paper, both at this end and this end. And sometimes it gets quite a ways in, sometimes it's just a short distance here. But both actually the bottom needed to be watched more than the top, and I'll show you why here in a minute. These papers were all like this. It's one big sheet of paper for all 8 pages. This is page 1 and page 8. Page 2 is on the back side of page 1. Page 7 is on the back side or inside of page 8. And then this would be page 4 here. Page 3 is on the other side. And this would be page 5, and page 6 is on the other side. So it goes through the press this way. I don't know how they managed to do it. I've not watched the press newspaper printing very often. I just see the machines run, but I don't see what it's doing. But it's just one huge sheet of paper, and that's where the X-Acto knife comes in. So this is the top fold, It's still together. And I took the X-Acto knife and I just gently separated the fold so that we were able to open it up without having to open it all the way up. And that happened to every paper. And again, you can see the interior. We've got dirt here, and that had to come off. And I hadn't rolled it back far enough up here to see yet whether there was dirt there that needed to be removed. But here's that same article after it was cleaned. And this just made a world of difference. All right, but you can see right here the difference between those two. So that's what it looked like when it was finished. And then, of course, I had to clean up the erasers, so this is how I do it. I would take all these erasers upstairs, and I had a dozen of them. And they would all look like pieces of coal when I took them up. And then, of course, there's always something that doesn't go into the dishwasher. So whatever soapy water was left over after cleaning that stuff up was used with this green scratch pad to get that dirt off of there. So here you can see half of it's done on that side, and then it's completely cleaned. So ready to go the next day once it dried. And then the papers were put in another box after they were cleaned until we could get around to processing them. We had one more step to do in this process, and that was to photograph them. And it took me a while to learn how to do that. And I'll talk to you about that in another video. But here is, these are 1884 newspapers, and in the boxes I have them separated by month. So this is February 1884, so the 4 papers under this name tag are the February 1884 papers. And then it'll be March, April, May, June, all the way up to December. But that's how we process the papers, and you'll see a little bit of that done with other papers that we have here that have cleaned later. And thank you for watching, and stay with us. We'll show you more of what we do.